After my family fell on hard times, I was forced to marry the newly crowned third-place scholar. For 3 years after our marriage, I treated him poorly, never consummating our union, not even letting him touch a single finger of mine. Yet after my death, I saw him clutching my corpse, vomiting blood, his hair turning white overnight. Reborn, I suddenly wished to treat him better. Main text: the 2nd year after my marriage to Gu Xingyuan, he was dispatched from the capital to quell unrest at Yanmen Pass. In the bitter cold of the north, he endured wind and frost, weathering one freezing night after another. Someone returning from Yanmen Pass brought word: Magistrate Gu wore thin garments, refusing the clothes villagers offered him, and both his hands were frostbitten. When a husband journeys far, it is only natural for his wife to prepare warm garments for him. Yet, sitting in my chamber, I idly fingered my prayer beads, thinking only, what does this concern me? He chose to marry me. On our wedding night, I told him plainly, my heart is dead and cold. I will never love him. He should harbor no expectations of me. He must have understood that even if he died at Yanmen Pass, I might not go to retrieve his body. The next day, I slept until noon. Chuanxi rushed in, exclaiming joyfully, Lord Gu has sent a letter. I took it, glanced at it not once, and tossed it lightly into the fire. Chuanxi gasped, Oh my, madam, why did you burn it? No need to read it. I know what it says. Nothing more than 4 words, all is well. Do not worry. Gu Xingyuan had been stationed away for 2 years, sending home a letter every month without fail. The contents never changed, just those 4 words, all is well. Do not worry. I couldn't fathom why he kept writing them. In this household, no one worried about him. Chuanxi watched the letter turn to ashes, feeling a pang of regret but dared not speak further. After a moment's awkward silence, she changed the subject to cheer me up. Madam, I've heard that Magistrate Gu governs Yanmen with great skill. His reputation is excellent, and the people adore him. When he returns to the capital, he might even be promoted. I paused, then smiled softly. He won't. By marrying me, the daughter of a convicted minister, he severed his own path to advancement. Promotion is impossible for him now. But there might still be a chance. What did you say? Chuanxi was a bit hard of hearing. I smiled at her. You may go now. Oh, I'd like some pear paste cakes. See if you can find any in the market. Perhaps it had been too long since I last smiled at her. Overjoyed, she nodded and dashed out immediately. I closed the courtyard gate. I washed my face, applied makeup, and pinned up my favorite pair of magnolia hairpins. From the bottom of a trunk, I retrieved the long-hidden bottle of Crane's Red. Then I brewed a fresh pot of tea, poured the entire bottle of red cinnabar into it, stirred it well, found a sunny corner, sat in a wicker chair, and slowly sipped the tea until the cup was empty. The letter in my hand was crumpled into a ball. It contained the news that my parents had died of illness in Ninguda. Today, I was going to reunite with them. Before my father was imprisoned, he had foreseen this. To save my life, he resolved to marry me off. After that, I would no longer be a Shui family daughter. When the clan fell into ruin, I could escape unscathed. He exhausted himself trying to protect me. But did he ever consider that, with my family destroyed and me utterly alone, I could not go on living? The Crane's Head Red took effect swiftly. I writhed in agony for a while, curled in a corner, blood streaming from my 7 orifices, my fingernails digging into the dirt. By the time Chuanxi returned, I was already beyond saving. I hope I didn't frighten her. As this thought crossed my mind, I realized I was floating in the air. I watched Chuanxi wail and rush off, carrying me on her back to find a doctor. It was useless. Once you've taken Crane's Red, even immortals can't save you. That night, I breathed my last. Chuanxi sent a carrier pigeon to Yanmen. By the 4th day, Gu Xingyuan had returned. The journey from Yenmen to the capital normally took 10 days on foot. He rode day and night, changing horses several times, and made it back in just 3 days. His eyes were bloodshot, his face gaunt. Dismounting, he rushed straight toward me. My coffin had not yet been made. My body lay on a small bed. Thankfully, the bitter cold had preserved it from decay. Gu Xingyuan embraced me, trembling with agony, his voice choked with sobs. "Xia Ying, why did you do this to me?" Veins bulged on his forehead. After a few breaths, he violently coughed up a mouthful of blood. I looked at him, utterly bewildered. "Gu Xingyuan, I treated you so badly, why are you grieving for me? I'm dead. You're no longer the son-in-law of a disgraced minister. Your official career will soar to new heights. You should be happy." But Gu Xingyuan couldn't hear my words. He only held me, refusing to let go. Chuanxi stood nearby, her eyes already swollen from crying. She whimpered that it was all her fault, urging Gu Xingyuan to compose himself and not harm his health. As if deaf to her, Gu Xingyuan clung to me, a pitiful sight, sitting there until dawn. When Chuanxi came to check on him again, she was startled. His hair had turned completely white. I watched him all night, yet I could never fathom why Gu Xingyuan was so utterly heartbroken. When my father first sought to marry me off, he pleaded endlessly, yet no one in the capital dared take this hot potato. Even my childhood sweetheart, Shen Mo, junior minister of the Supreme Court, avoided me like the plague. Just as my heart grew cold and weary, Gu Xingyuan came to propose. He was the newly crowned third-place scholar in the imperial examinations, brilliant, noble in character, and blessed with striking good looks. Even the prime minister had offered his daughter in marriage, which he had refused. Yet he turned to marry me, this source of misfortune. When asked why, he said that upon entering the capital, my father had given him a bowl of water to quench his thirst. He married me to repay that debt of a single bowl of water. But if it was truly only for a bowl of water, Gu Xingyuan, why did you grieve so deeply after my death? I sat before Gu Xingyuan, studying him closely. Truth be told, I'd never truly looked at him before, hardly even remembered his features. Now, studying him closely, I realized his face was strikingly handsome, deep-set eyes, a cool, sharp beauty that suited my taste perfectly. To have ignored such a beauty for 3 years. I must have been blind. Too bad I'm already dead. A gust of wind swept by, and my spirit body gradually grew transparent. I realized this was my time to depart. Gu Xingyuan's hair fluttered in the breeze. He held me motionless, his gaze as lifeless as a walking corpse. I reached out to wipe his face. Don't grieve anymore. From now on, no one will hold you back. Go advance in your career. I'm ascending to heaven. I drifted away with the wind, my consciousness fading. Madam! Lord Gu has sent word. Wake up, madam! Chuanxi's chattering voice was piercingly loud. I rubbed my temples and opened my eyes irritably. All right, Chuanxi. I got it. Then it hit me, hadn't I died? I looked down and saw my hands were warm and alive, still feeling the heat from the charcoal fire. It was utterly unbelievable. Chuanxi, am I still alive? Madam, did you sleep yourself into oblivion? Who takes a nap and wakes up dead? Chuanxi stared at me with wide, round eyes. Only then did I notice Chuanxi was a bit shorter than I remembered, with a round, youthful face much more delicate than my recollection. I lifted my gaze to survey my surroundings. I was seated by a small window in a tea house. Outside, pedestrians thronged the streets. The women passing by all wore the plum blossom makeup that had been all the rage a year ago. Chuanxi, what year is this? It's the 10th year of Xunbao now. Oh dear, madam. Master Gu has only been away at Yenmen for a year, and I've already cared for you into senility. When he returns, I'm afraid I'm finished. Chuinshi pouted, her face clouded with worry. I froze for a moment, then pinched myself hard. The sharp sting brought me back to reality. I was alive, and I'd returned to a year ago. This was the year before my parents died of illness. A sudden jolt of realization struck me. Before my consciousness faded, countless sheets of paper had mysteriously floated before my eyes, densely covered with the character injustice. Could this have been a sign? Had heaven granted me the second chance to clear my father's name? The tea house entrance suddenly grew bustling. Snapping back to reality, I glanced over and met a pair of amber eyes. It was Shinimo, the junior minister of the Supreme Court of Justice. He stared at me, frozen for a moment. A colleague beside him teased, "Minister Shin, old flame reunited, won't you say hello?" Shinimo's brow furrowed in obvious disgust. His tone was icy. "I have no connection to this woman. Minister Young, if you persist in such nonsense, beware of having your tongue pulled out in the dead of night." My lips twitched. Back then, my love for Shinimo was known throughout the city. I poured my heart and soul into him. Yet after my family fell from grace, he shut his doors to me, breaking my heart long ago. And now he has the nerve to look down on me? How laughable. I rose and left. "Chuinshi, let's go home." Having a proper meal and still running into this past, what rotten luck. Shinimo's eyelid twitched. He shifted his gaze away without a flicker of emotion, his slender fingers tightening inside his sleeve. Stepping out of the tea house, images of floating paper kept flashing through my mind. I pondered them over and over, yet found no answers. Chuinshi hurried after me, her voice urgent, "Madam, you haven't read Lord Gu's letter yet." Gu Xingyuan. I halted, turning to look at the letter in her hand. The image of Gu Xingyuan coughing up blood at the moment of my death flashed through my mind, leaving me momentarily dazed. He had been away at Yenmen for a year. I had never sent him a single word, yet he still wrote back faithfully every month, his stubbornness baffling. "Give it to me. I'll read it." I took the letter and opened it. As always, it contained just 4 simple words, "All is well. Do not worry." My heart ached inexplicably. All his hidden affection, all the hopes buried deep within him, were entrusted to these 4 brief characters. A group of women gathered ahead, chattering noisily. Clutching large bundles, they seemed to be entrusting something to someone. Chuinshi glanced over and said, "The cold has set in. These ladies have all made winter clothes to send to their husbands at the frontier. I wonder if it's cold at Yenmen Pass." When Magistrate Gu left, he was lightly dressed. He must be freezing by now. Ah, it's so bitterly cold, while others have warm clothes, he has none. How pitiful. Ah, never mind. He must be used to it by now. Every word Chuinshi spoke was a hint. How had I never noticed before? No, it wasn't that I hadn't noticed. I simply didn't care. Suddenly, I felt utterly wretched. Enough, Chuinshi. I rubbed my forehead. Go buy 2 ready-made garments and send them to Lord Gu. Having them made fresh wouldn't be in time, but I doubt he'd care whether they were handmade by me. Just having them would be good enough. Chuinshi blinked, looking incredulous, then nodded vigorously, "Yes, madam." "Ah, madam, would you like to include a letter?" I'd never written him a letter. I'd always treated him poorly. Wouldn't it seem strange to suddenly write showing concern? Ah, what the heck? I'd write it anyway. I stepped into a postal station, requested paper and ink, and pondered for ages, unsure what to write. Looking up, I saw that at some point, large snowflakes had begun falling softly, mingling with the bustling earthly smoke and fire. The new year was approaching. In my previous life, Gu Xingyuan had returned before the new year. But back then, I treated him with utter coldness. I stayed indoors, praying to Buddha and chanting sutras, refusing to see him even once. On New Year's Eve, he came to invite me to stay up and welcome the new year together. Finding him bothersome, I poured a cup of cold tea at him and slammed the door shut. He stood outside, cold and distant, watching the snow blanket the courtyard, his damp hair frosted over. Only after the New Year's fireworks had faded did he murmur to himself, "My lady, Happy New Year. May we always be like this, with each year bringing fresh beginnings." After that, he never came looking for me again. Even on the day he returned to Yenmen, he specifically instructed Xuanxi not to tell me, so as not to disturb my peace. All the ways I treated him back then feel as fresh as yesterday. Looking back, I realize how truly heartless I must have been. I sighed softly, lowered my head, and carefully wrote 8 words. As the year draws to a close, I long for your early return. After sending the letter in winter clothes, Xuanxi chattered happily all the way. When Lord Gu receives this, he'll be overjoyed. I didn't know if he would be pleased, nor did I have time to ponder it. Right now, my sole focus was clearing my father's name. After much deliberation, I could only begin by secretly monitoring those who had denounced my father in my previous life. Whether I was heading in the wrong direction or they were simply too cautious, nearly a month of surveillance yielded nothing. The matter once again reached an impasse. It wasn't until the 20th day of the 12th lunar month that I passed by the Ministry of Justice. From afar, I saw constables bustling about like ants, carrying things in and out. Curious, I asked a passerby and learned that several rooms in the ministry had collapsed due to years of neglect. They were now sorting belongings in preparation for repairs. Suddenly, a thread of insight emerged. With the temple in disarray, perhaps I could seize the chance to access the case files concerning my father. I want to find my father's case files. Before I could finish, his icy hand clamped over my mouth. He glanced around, then yanked me inside, slamming the door shut. His tone was sharp and urgent. "What do you want with them?" I shook off his hand, pleading urgently, "Shinimo, my father was framed. I need to see the case files to clear his name." "Are you out of your mind? These aren't documents you should see. Besides, he's already confessed. There's no room for reversal. You're wasting your time. How can you know it's futile without trying? Shinimo, my father was so good to you back then. Can't you help him? You have no idea what this case involves. Shui Siying, the Shin family is a century-old distinguished clan. I won't let it be destroyed by my hands. I won't help you." He turned his face away coldly, refusing to look at me. I stared at him, my heart sinking another half. Back when I begged him to marry me, he'd said the same thing. He'd said the Shin family was a century-old clan, he was the eldest son, burdened since childhood with countless people's expectations, he couldn't possibly ruin his future for me. So be it. I hadn't held much hope before coming here anyway. Fine, I understand. Take these boxes of pastries. Consider them a New Year's gift. I won't be coming for the holiday. I set down the gifts and left, feeling utterly forlorn. Shinimo suddenly turned around, "Shui Siying, stop investigating. I'm doing this for your own good." Without looking back, I opened the door and walked out. Stepping outside the Shin residence, I lifted my head to gaze at the sky, feeling utterly powerless. In my past life, my father told me not to meddle in anything, not to do anything. I obeyed him, yet in the end, he and mother still never returned. This time around, I must do something. But what can I possibly do? The December wind cut like a knife, stinging my skin. I shivered, exhaling a breath to warm my hands. Looking up, I saw Xuanxi running through the snow, shouting, "Madam, Lord Gu has returned." By the time I hurried back, Gu Xingyuan and his entourage had already reached our doorstep. The blizzard raged fiercely. He sat tall upon his white steed, his figure striking, yet behind him only a single attendant followed, cold and lonely. I felt a pang of guilt. Had he not married me, Gu Xingyuan would have long since risen to prominence, surrounded by attendants. How could he now be so shabby? Husband, I called out, stopping and smiling at him. Gu Xingyuan turned his head. Seeing me, a flicker of surprise crossed his eyes, but he quickly suppressed it. He dismounted, gripping the reins as he said, controlled and distant, I'm back. We stood facing each other, feeling as unfamiliar as strangers, not like husband and wife. I had resolved to treat him better upon his return, to embrace him, warm his frostbitten hands, tell him how much I missed him and longed for his return. Yet when he actually came back, I felt awkward. Had he seen the letter I sent? Why didn't he seem particularly happy? My confidence wavered, but I still walked over, forcing a smile as I looked at him. Why did you come back so early this year? There was no trouble at Yenmen, so I returned early, he said. Then, his hand tightened on the reins as he asked me, you wrote in your letter asking me to come back early. Did something happen at home? I froze. Suddenly, I understood why he felt this way. Because I had never been kind to him, because I had never replied to his letters, he instinctively assumed that if I wrote to him or sent him winter clothes, it must be because something had happened at home and he was needed. No. I looked at him, each word sincere, it's because I missed you. His hands stiffened, his heart clearly in turmoil, yet somehow he regained his composure swiftly. After a moment's silence, he looked at me, his eyes tinged with faint melancholy. Is that so? But you've just returned from the Shin residence, haven't you? Madam, you've practiced Buddhism for 2 years, living in the utmost simplicity. Yet today you wore those vibrant, old-fashioned robes, was it to see him? My mind went blank for an instant. In my past life, my heart had turned to ashes. I spent my days with only the lamp and Buddha for company, never once dressing up. This life, I wanted to pick myself up and live well. Yet here I was, misunderstood by him. I hurriedly explained, no, I didn't dress like this to see him. And I went to find him because asking for case files meant facing jail time, something I couldn't casually mention. Frantic, I scratched my head and blurted out, he owes me money. I went to collect. That excuse was pure nonsense. He didn't buy it, his eyes turning away in disappointment and sorrow. Is that so? He gave a faint smile, then quickly drew a breath, distancing himself from his emotions. His gaze grew distant as he looked at me. If you say so, then so be it. With that, he turned to his attendant. Ping'an, take these things to the study. I stood frozen, watching him walk through the door, his retreating figure lonely and desolate. Chuanxi muttered anxiously, what's gotten into Lord Gu? I gathered my wits and hurried after him to stop him. Why not move them to the bedroom? The study is so cold. His tone remained cool. No need. I'm accustomed to resting in the study. Then let me help you pack. No need. Then I'll clean your room. I tried to rush ahead of him but slipped, nearly falling. Gu Xingyuan swiftly caught me, his hand withdrawing almost immediately. He looked at me, his thin lips pressed tightly together, his emotions struggling to stay contained. Si I Ying. His ink-black eyes fixed on me, his voice trembling slightly. If there's anything you need me to do, just say the word. I'll do it for you. You don't have to put yourself through this. I was speechless. He was serious. He didn't believe I'd suddenly changed my ways toward him. He'd rather believe I was trying to use him. Ultimately, it was because the old me had treated him so badly. While Chuanxi and Ping'an went to cook, I stood silently at the study door, watching him organize his things. I sighed, suddenly feeling life was so hard. I'd come back to clear my father's name, yet after a month, there was no progress. I'd wanted to be kinder to Gu Xingyuan, but I'd messed it up the moment we met. My eyes stung, and I stood at the doorway, tears falling. I watched Gu Xingyuan, saying nothing, yet refusing to leave. Gu Xingyuan sighed and came over. Stop crying. It's freezing out here. What if you catch a chill? I threw myself into his arms. So you do care about me freezing? If you're going to be so heartless, you might as well just let me freeze to death out here. His body stiffened, his heart pounding wildly, yet he didn't know what to do. We'd never shared physical intimacy before, he couldn't adjust to this sudden closeness. Where have I been heartless? His voice trembled. You have. You say this isn't necessary, that isn't necessary, you never see my concern, only assume my motives. I held him tighter, looking at him sincerely. Gu Xingyuan, I've thought it through. I want to be good to you. My past mistreatment was my fault. I'll never be like that again. Let's live well together, okay? He stared at me blankly. I knew he still didn't believe me. But in the end, he yielded to the beautiful future I described. Even if he suspected an abyss lay ahead, he couldn't help but want to take a step forward. Okay. Then why aren't you hugging me? All right. His warm hands awkwardly settled on my back. I couldn't see his expression, only felt his arms silently tighten around me. I chuckled quietly in his embrace. I knew this tactic would work. That night at dinner, I kept piling extra dishes onto Gu Xingyuan's plate. He obeyed perfectly, whatever I served, he ate, though he barely spoke. Later that night, he habitually retreated to his study. I wrapped myself in a quilt and went to find him. He sat at his desk drafting a work report. When he looked up and saw me enter, he froze in surprise. Snuggled in the quilt, I sat down obediently beside him. Let me grind ink for you. He set down his brush, trying to shoo me away. No need. It's cold. You should rest early. No, I insisted, snuggling closer to him. I pulled the quilt over us, covering his legs. It's freezing in here, not even a brazier in this study, and you're wearing so little. You're not taking care of yourself. Watch out for rheumatism. When you're old and your legs ache, don't come crying to me. Hurry, cover up. The warm quilt draped over his legs. He glanced at me, unable to refuse. His cold gaze finally softened. Fine. He said no more, merely turning his head to pick up his brush and resume writing his documents. Gu Xingyuan's calligraphy was truly beautiful, robust yet refined. No wonder he was the third-place scholar, his writing was as splendid as he was. But his hands were cracked from the cold, the wounds stark and alarming. My eyes stung with tears. I couldn't help asking, Gu Xingyuan, does your hand hurt? He paused briefly, writing as he replied, it doesn't hurt. Yanmen is bitterly cold, frostbite is common. My minor injury is nothing compared to the people who freeze to death here. But now that the rebels are gone and life is returning to normal, no one will freeze to death anymore. My heart tightened. I'd always heard that Gu Xingyuan held immense prestige in Yanmen. With such concern for the people, it was no wonder they revered him. Leaning on the table, I found myself growing fonder of him with every glance. A man like this shouldn't be forever confined beneath others, his ambitions left unfulfilled. Having been reborn, I must live fully, not only to save father and mother, but also to restore the career path Gu Xingyuan had sacrificed. After a long while, he caught my gaze and turned to me. What are you smiling about? I blinked innocently. I'm just happy. How did I end up with such a wonderful husband? Handsome and noble-hearted too. His ears flushed crimson, and he turned away, flustered. What nonsense. He wrote a few characters, then set down his brush. It's late. You should go to bed. No, I'll wait for you. I nudged closer to him. His body trembled slightly as he controlled himself, speaking calmly, "There's no need to wait. I'm tired. I'll rest in the study. I want to sleep with you, my husband. Shall we go to the bedroom? We are husband and wife, after all." His breath caught, as if he'd been holding back. "Siang, be reasonable. I don't want you to regret this later." Before he could finish, I rose, wrapped my arms around his neck, and pressed a kiss to his lips. Gu Xingyuan's body jerked, his heart racing. His ink-black eyes lingered on my lips for a moment, then, as if bewitched, he grabbed my waist and kissed me fiercely. My whole body tingled, as if he were kneading me into his very being. I never knew a scholar like him could possess such strength. In the final moment before reason vanished, his voice raspy, he asked, "Shui Xiying, are you sure?" Don't regret this." Early the next morning, Gu Xingyuan wrapped me in the quilt and carried me back to the bedroom. As he opened the door, he encountered Chuanxi and Ping'an rising to sweep the courtyard. The two young servants froze in shock for a moment before blushing and scurrying away, heads bowed in embarrassment. Gu Xingyuan gently laid me on the bed, a faint smile in his eyes. "Sleep a little longer. I'm heading to court." I nodded obediently. He kissed my forehead, turned to leave, then suddenly looked back. "Is there anything you want? I'll bring it back for you. I want pear-flavored rice cakes." "All right." He smiled gently before finally walking away. I slept until noon, ate my meal, then took Chuanxi out to buy New Year's provisions. In the afternoon, I went to the post station again, finding a way to send my parents some clothes and medicine for treating cold-induced fever. They were exiled to Ningguda, under constant guard year-round. Normally, letters and supplies never reached them. Only during the new year did the guards make some concessions. I slipped a letter into the parcel, simply informing them I was well and to take care of themselves. I dared write nothing more. This letter would be scrutinized countless times before reaching Ningguda. On my way back, I happened upon Gu Xingyuan returning from court. He hadn't noticed me, standing before a jewelry shop, browsing. I pressed Chuanxi to stay quiet as we both hid nearby, watching him. The shopkeeper recognized Gu Xingyuan and greeted him warmly. "Minister Gu, picking out jewelry for your wife?" Gu Xingyuan smiled and nodded, picking up 2 hairpins. The tenderness in his eyes was almost palpable. "Have you chosen yet, Minister? I feel like she'd look beautiful with either one." "Then take both. Your wife must be overjoyed that you cherish her so much." Gu Xingyuan smiled softly, pressing his lips together, and handed both hairpins to the shopkeeper. "Take both. Wrap them carefully. Right away." Hidden behind the window, my heart swelled with joy. Chuanxi was so excited she tugged at my clothes. Just as I was about to run over to Gu Xingyuan, a sudden commotion erupted behind me. "Catch the fugitive! Catch the fugitive!" A horse galloped wildly toward us, scattering chickens and dogs in its wake. People were knocked down, cries of pain filling the air. Passers-by scrambled to the roadside, overturning street stalls. Fruits and vegetables rolled everywhere. Chuanxi and I were squeezed into a narrow gap. Gu Xingyuan turned to look, his expression changing as he sprinted after the fugitive. He was unarmed. What was he doing chasing that villain? "Gu," before the word left my lips, he planted his feet, leapt onto the horse, and seized the fugitive. Both men tumbled to the ground. A cold gleam flashed as the fugitive swung his sword at Gu. He dodged sideways, seized the blade with a backhand, and with a swift stroke, severed both the man's legs. Blood spurted, severed limbs rolled. I froze in place, staring blankly at Gu Xingyuan. 2 or 3 drops of blood splattered his face, his gaze cold and terrifying, like a mountain wolf. The fugitive lay stiff beside him, blood staining the long street, wailing incessantly. He merely gave him a fleeting glance before tossing the sword to the arriving soldiers. Presenting his official badge, his voice icy, "Take him away." Only as the half-man beneath him was hauled away did he lift his head, spotting me in the crowd. He froze, and in that instant, the ferocity in his eyes crumbled. "Siang." He rushed over, looking at me with panic, reaching out to grab my hand, only to realize his own was stained with blood. He quickly clenched it, hiding it behind his back. He stared at me, too flustered to speak. I knew he feared I'd be terrified by him, feared I'd despise him once more. But he underestimated me. I steadied myself, said nothing, pulled a handkerchief from my sleeve, walked over, seized the hand he'd hidden, and wiped it carefully. He was startled for a moment, then his heart gradually calmed. He tried to pull his hand away. "Don't touch it. It's dirty." I held it tighter, lowering my head to wipe it slowly. In a light tone, I asked him, "You're a top scholar, not a martial arts champion. Where did you learn these fighting skills?" He lowered his eyes. "Bandits ran rampant in Yenmen Pass. Staying there long enough, you just pick it up." Bandits running rampant. How much suffering had he endured all those years? My nose stung, and I nearly cried, quickly exhaling to hold back the tears. "Where's the hairpin you bought me?" I demanded, hands on my hips. "I'll go get it now." "And my pear paste cake, did you forget about that?" "I bought it. I had it sent home." He looked down at me and smiled. How could I forget something the lady instructed me to do? After that day, Gu Xingyuan and I truly lived like an ordinary married couple. We enjoyed several peaceful days. By day, he attended court while I went about my own affairs. By night, we would snuggle together, playing chess or reading. Before long, the new year arrived. Gazing at the fireworks bursting overhead, melancholy filled my heart. I wondered how the new year was celebrated in Ninguda. During these days, I'd uncovered some clues. The witnesses who had identified my father all seemed to have close ties to a certain brothel, though the nature of those connections remained unclear. One more year. I clenched my fist, silently vowing that if I couldn't overturn the verdict, I would become an outlaw myself to rescue my parents. "Siang, what are you thinking about?" Gu Xingyuan suddenly appeared behind me. Startled, I covered up, "Nothing." I hadn't told him about clearing my father's name. After all, it was dangerous business, and I didn't want to drag him into it. Yet he seemed to see through me. "Thinking about your parents-in-law?" "Huh? How did you know?" His eyes flickered as he looked at me, but he quickly covered it up. "Just a guess." "Don't worry, I sent someone to visit them in Ninguda. They're both doing well." "Good. That's good. Thank you." I smiled at him. He said nothing more. The atmosphere grew awkward. I cleared my throat softly, gazing at the fireworks from some wealthy household in the distance and murmured, "So beautiful." "Look." He smiled and asked, "Want to set off some fireworks?" "It's pointless to wish for it. These aren't things ordinary people can use." "Then wait for me. I'll be back in a moment." "Huh?" I grabbed his arm. "Where are you going?" "All the shops are closed today, there's nowhere to buy them." "Just wait here. Lock the door tight. There are many petty thieves during the new year." He patted my hand, called Ping'an, and left together. I waited at home. Barely the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, someone knocked on the door. "Coming, coming. How fast you are." I rushed ahead of Chuanxi and eagerly opened the door. But the person standing there was Shinimo. He wore a black cloak, wrapped from head to toe, revealing only a pair of fox-like eyes. He looked mysterious, as if afraid of being recognized. "Why are you here?" He said, "New Year's greetings." Reciprocity, you know. How peculiar. I stared at him in puzzlement when his eyes darted toward the courtyard. Is Gu Xingyuan here? I snorted. Why does it matter if he's here? You came to pay respects, not to sneak around. How vulgar, he remarked coolly. Stunned into silence, I finally stepped aside after a moment. Since you're here, have some tea. As if waiting for those words, he immediately stepped forward. I'll gladly accept your kind offer. What an insufferable man. What on earth did I ever see in him? Fuming, I kicked his retreating back. I see it now. Childish. Not a bit changed even after marriage. He snorted coldly. He paused in the courtyard, removed his hooded cloak, and surveyed my home. Finally, a faint sneer escaped him, a distinguished third-place scholar, yet your residence is so shabby. I sneered back, unlike you, born into a noble family with centuries of prestige. Where would he find a house this big? He could have had one. But he chose to marry you, ruining his own future. Utterly foolish. What exactly are you trying to say? How does my shabby house bother you? Nothing. Just musing aloud. You've learned to endure hardship. Not bad. True love conquers all. Gu Lang treats me well, I don't feel hardship. He was stumped, his mood souring. I couldn't be bothered to argue. Come in for a moment. I won't. His expression remained impassive as he handed me a package. Thank you. I clutched the file and dashed into the study, Shinimo following close behind. I flipped through it by lamplight and immediately spotted numerous discrepancies. This case file was riddled with inconsistencies and errors, yet they'd used it to convict my father. Shinimo, look! These testimonies contradict each other completely. It's clearly a frame-up. Someone orchestrated this to frame my father. Shinimo tucked his hands into his sleeves and turned his head away. Don't tell me any of this. I'm deaf. I can't hear you. I lowered my head and continued flipping through the pages, but the file was thick, and I couldn't finish it in a short while. The main door was knocked on again. I hurriedly hid the file. Chuanxi hurried to open the door. From a distance, I heard Pingin's laughter. Your Honor, after the mistress finishes, could you let me have a turn too? Look, I braved the snowstorm to accompany you, if not for merit, then at least for hardship. Gu Xingyuan snorted lightly. Go ask the mistress. This is all hers. Yes, yes, yes. Even you, my lord, are hers. Gu Xingyuan said nothing, carrying a box of fireworks inside. He looked up and saw me. And Shinimo beside me. His steps halted abruptly. His gaze fell on Shinimo, and the amusement in his eyes faded, replaced by a barely perceptible flicker of alarm. My heart clenched, and fear crept into me too. I scrambled over in 3 quick steps. Husband, you're back. Are those fireworks? Put them down, put them down. How can you carry something so heavy? Don't touch them. I'll put them down myself. As soon as he bent to set the fireworks down, I threw myself into his arms. You're the best, husband. Are your hands cold? Oh my, they're freezing. Let me warm them for you. I grabbed Gu Xingyuan's hands, rubbing them together before pressing them against my cheeks to warm them. I took the chance to steal a kiss on the back of his hand, smiling up at him. His gaze gradually softened. He then turned to look at Shinimo. I turned to see Shinimo standing silently beneath the eaves, his face dark as charcoal. Gu Xingyuan gave a half-hearted bow. Minister Shin. Shinimo ignored him, coldly addressing me instead. Are you still going to review the case files? If not, I'll take them. Oh no! Shinimo probably still doesn't know I've been hiding things from Gu Xingyuan. But it didn't matter. I'd just muddle through it later. I still need to review them. There are simply too many files to finish in a short time. Could you let me keep them for one more day? I'll return them tomorrow. You need another day? Shinimo took a deep breath. Shui Xiying, remember this, you stole these files. I did not give them to you. I nodded. Rest assured, I won't implicate you. You'd better keep your word. He snorted coldly, pulled his hood over his head, and strode away. I truly don't understand him. So afraid of being implicated, yet he braved the snowstorm to deliver these files to me. He came all this way without a single kind word, as if terrified anyone might remember his kindness. How awkward. After Shinimo left, Gu Xingyuan asked me as expected, what files? Ah, nothing much. Just a storybook. You wouldn't like it. Is that so? Yes, yes. I smiled and looked up, but the moment our eyes met, my mind went blank. He said nothing, just watched me silently. Yet his gaze held disappointment and loneliness, clearly, he was hurt. I remembered when we first married. He tried to draw near, hoping I'd lean on him, trust him. But back then, I was drowning in my own suffering, utterly weary of the world. Time and again, I pushed him away with vicious force. Gradually, the look in his eyes changed, disappointed, lonely, just like today. These past days, though I've treated him well, it seems far from enough for him. I've always sensed he was enduring, accommodating, waiting, yet I never knew why. Now, I suddenly understand. What he truly desires isn't just superficial happiness, but for me to trust him, rely on him, have no secrets between us, to be one heart as husband and wife. I changed my mind, taking Gu Xingyuan's hand. You come. I led him into the study, retrieved the case files, and flipped through them for him to see. He lowered his gaze to me, a momentary surprise in his eyes. These are the case files for my father's case. I've always wanted to clear his name, which is why I sought out Shinimo and begged him to let me see them. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, I was afraid of dragging you into this. I know. He looked at me and suddenly smiled. I've known what you've been doing these past days. I was just waiting for you to tell me yourself. Seeing, I'm glad you can share this with me. You knew? I jerked my head up, staring at him. His words brought both joy and new worry. But what I've been doing is dangerous, Gu Xingyuan. I don't want to drag you into this. Now that you know, we should divorce. If something happens in the future, you won't. Before I could finish, Gu Xingyuan pulled me into his arms and lowered his head to kiss my lips until I fell silent. I'm not afraid of being dragged down. I'm only afraid you won't trust me. Gu Xingyuan and I pored over the case files all night, making a copy. I couldn't discern much myself, but Gu Xingyuan, being in official circles, saw far more hidden information than I did. He unraveled the threads like a master, quickly piecing together the clues. You said you discovered those men had close ties to a brothel recently. That's the key. The brothel's backer is a man surnamed Zhuang. Privately, he conducts business with many princes and nobles. His cousin happens to be the steward of Han Pe, the current imperial uncle. These two brothers are Han Pe's lackeys. Your father once submitted a report implicating Han Pe. The mastermind behind this is self-evident. Han Pe? The imperial consort Han's own brother? My heart skipped a beat. Who didn't know consort Han? Her favor surpassed even the empress's. And Han Pe himself was a powerful minister, second only to the emperor. I never imagined the man who would bring down my father would be such a figure. After a moment, I clenched my fists. So what if he's a powerful minister? My father was framed. I will clear his name. Calm down, Seeing. Gu Xingyuan's voice was grave. Han Po holds immense power. With just the two of us, it's nearly impossible to touch him. Didn't your father know he was innocent? Why did he confess? Why didn't he appeal? Because he couldn't stand up to Han Po. Even if we found evidence, there'd be no avenue for appeal. His influence permeates every corner of the capital. No one dares to judge him. There's only one person in this world who can help us. All of Han Po's honors and favors come from this one person. I froze for a moment before quickly catching on. You mean him? Gu Xingyuan nodded. This man prides himself on being the smartest in the land. What he hates most is being deceived. Han Pe is his most obedient dog. He doesn't care whether Han Po has harmed others, he only cares about Han Po's loyalty and obedience. And from what I know, Han Po has committed quite a few acts of defiance against him in secret. I understand. Han Po enjoys that man's deep trust. If I directly accuse Han Po of framing my father, that man might not intervene, he'd likely let Han Po use this chance for retaliation. But if that man learns Han Po pays lip service while secretly defying him, the situation changes entirely. To save my father, I must first bring down Han Po. What we lack now is proof of Han Po deceiving that man. After a night of deliberation, a clear plan took shape, and the weight on my heart finally eased. I concealed the copied documents and, on the morning of New Year's Day, disguised myself to enter the Shin residence through the back gate. I returned the original files to Shinimo. He seemed to have anticipated my arrival, having sent someone to escort me inside. You kept your word. Shinimo took the documents and casually asked, "Did you find anything?" I asked in surprise, "Aren't you deaf?" He choked. I couldn't help but chuckle. All right, Shinimo. These documents are very useful. Gu Xingyuan and I suspect Han Po is the mastermind behind this. I now know what to do. Han Po? He flinched, though it seemed almost expected. He's the all-powerful imperial uncle. Even with evidence, you can't touch him. His influence permeates the capital, no one dares challenge him. That sounds exactly like what Gu Xingyuan said. He looked utterly dismissive. Don't compare me to him. Flattery won't work. Who's comparing you to him? He gritted his teeth. You. Just leave already. Fine. I'm leaving, Shinimo. Thank you for helping me. I didn't help you. I know. Rest assured, I won't drag you down. He stared at me silently, then turned away in silent fury, refusing to speak. I bowed to him and turned to go home. Suddenly, he shouted after me, "Go ahead, Xue Xiying. No matter what mess you stir up, I won't lift a finger to help. If you die, I'll only clap my hands in delight." I paused. Turning back, I smiled at him. Understood, Magistrate Shin. He slammed the door shut, clearly annoyed. I began gathering evidence of Han Po's deceitful manipulation and political scheming. With the help of Gu Xingyuan, a seasoned bureaucrat, everything became much easier. A few days later, the brothel closely tied to Han Po announced it would host a banquet of flowers. We decided to infiltrate the event to investigate. To avoid recognition, we both disguised ourselves. So many familiar faces. Look at those few, they've even been guests at my home before. They seemed so upright and incorruptible, yet here they are seeking pleasure at a brothel. Most officials are two-faced. Nothing to be surprised about. And what about you? Gu Xingyuan chuckled. Me? I'm naturally a pure lotus blossom, untouched by the mud. We ventured further inside, but after just a few steps, Gu Xingyuan was stopped. A voluptuous woman turned towards him, beaming at Gu Xingyuan. "Oh my, young master, you look unfamiliar." First time visiting the brothel? As she spoke, several beauties gathered around. What a handsome gentleman! Wait, Gu Xingyuan was covered in a thick beard, how could he be handsome? Would you like some company, sir? To be honest, I've studied poetry and literature myself. Another woman beamed at Gu Xingyuan, looking as if she'd pay him just to nod. Gu Xingyuan smiled politely. It's still early. No rush. I'll look around some more. Hearing this, the women didn't press their luck. They turned and walked away. TSK. Guess he doesn't fancy us. Let's go, let's go. I'm just not good enough for him anyway. After the beauties departed, Gu Xingyuan led me upstairs. As we wandered, he observed everything with unflinching composure. I stared blankly at the women below, pacing to attract customers. Gu Xingyuan murmured, "What's wrong?" I shook my head and sighed. She too studied poetry and literature. She was once a well-educated, refined woman. How did she end up in such a place? Gu Xingyuan glanced at her too, his expression complex. Perhaps she was sold. Or maybe kidnapped. Han Pe, to cement his power, opened brothels like this across the land to bribe officials. These women, gathered from all corners, are sacrifices on his path to the clouds. How despicable! Gu Xingyuan lowered his gaze and squeezed my hand discreetly. The case will be overturned. The villains will be brought to justice. The world will surely be cleansed. I nodded, glancing downstairs, when suddenly my eyes lit up. Gu Xingyuan! Look! It was Zhuang Han, the brothel's proprietor. He entered and headed straight upstairs, his expression suggesting urgent business. Gu Xingyuan and I exchanged a knowing glance before following him. We saw Zhuang Han enter a room on the top floor. He remained inside for a long time before emerging, his expression unchanged as he descended to greet guests. That room must hold some secret. We strolled up the stairs as if aimlessly. At the top, a burly guard stood watch. Gu Xingyuan feigned asking where the restroom was, then struck him down with a palm strike when he wasn't looking. We tossed the guard into an empty room and locked him inside before sneaking into the very chamber Zhuang Han had entered. After searching, we indeed found a hidden compartment behind the bookshelf, revealing correspondence between Zhuang Han and Han Pe. Such things should have been burned, but Zhuang Han had hidden them to keep a back door open for himself. However, just as we were examining the letters, the door was suddenly kicked open. For some reason, Zhuang Han had returned, leading a group of people who blocked our exit. The old madam who had received us earlier stood behind Zhuang Han, hands on her hips, shouting, "I knew something was off with you too." This was bad. Several men charged at us with clubs. Gu Xingyuan kicked over a table, knocking them aside. He grabbed me in a protective embrace and leaped through a broken window, fleeing down the corridor. Behind us, someone set a fire. Thick smoke billowed, plunging the brothel into chaos as people scrambled to escape. Gu Xingyuan and I were chased relentlessly until we reached a dead end. Zhuang Han arrived with a knife, sneering coldly, "See where you can run now." Gu Xingyuan shielded me behind him, his arms and legs icy cold. With so many thugs, escape was impossible. "I'm sorry, I've dragged you into this," I said guiltily. Gu Xingyuan just smiled. "What are you talking about? Ever since you saved me on that official road years ago, I decided I'd live my life for you." I saved him? I froze, then suddenly remembered. The year before my father was framed, he took me sightseeing outside the capital. On the way back, we unexpectedly came upon a man collapsed by the roadside. My heart ached, and I begged my father to save him. The sky was already darkening, I was inside the carriage and hadn't seen his face clearly. So it was him. I suddenly felt a mix of laughter and tears. It was merely a passing kindness, Gu Xingyuan. How could this possibly be worth you living for me? Zhuang Han swung his blade at us. Gu Xingyuan shielded me behind him, prepared to fight to the death. But then... whoosh! A dart sliced through the air, knocking Zhuang Han's sword from his hand. Halt! A fierce shout rang out from the doorway as soldiers stormed in. Clutching his hand, Zhuang Han roared in fury, "Who dares meddle in the affairs of my 10,000 flowers pavilion?" A soft snort echoed as a familiar figure appeared at the doorway. Dressed in official robes, sword in hand, he stood glaring at Zhuang Han. This official, he declared, is personally appointed by His Majesty as Junior Minister of the Supreme Court of Justice and Deputy Commander of the capital's garrison. Tell me, does this official have authority, or does he not? Shin Yimou. I never expected him to appear here. Zhuang Han frowned. What brings you here? Shin Yimou glanced at me and Gu Xingyuan before stating flatly, someone reported that Wan Waglu imprisons and abuses virtuous young women. I've come to investigate. Zhuang Han roared with laughter, striding over arrogantly. Do you know who owns Wan Waglu? A mere junior minister of the Supreme Court of Justice dares to meddle? The murder and robbery schemes of the 10,000 Flowers Pavilion were, in truth, common knowledge. Yet with Han Pa shielding them, no one dared investigate, hence Zhuang Han's audacity. Shin Yimou gave a cold laugh. Suddenly, his eyes flashed, and his hand moved like a blade. Before Zhuang Han could utter a cry of alarm, his head rolled to the ground. Boss! The thugs, seeing this, lunged forward. Shin Yimou didn't move an inch, glaring at them with icy detachment. If you dare come near, guess how many men this lowly junior minister of the Supreme Court dares to kill. The thugs froze, hesitating, too afraid to advance. Shin Yimou waved his hand. The officers behind him surged forward, subduing them all. The 10,000 Flowers Pavilion soon burned through to its core, its charred beams lurching and swaying precariously. We hid in a distant tavern, watching the officers shuttle water back and forth to extinguish the flames. Gu Xingyuan led me to Shin Yimou and bowed respectfully. Thank you, Lord Shin. Shin Yimou didn't want to acknowledge him, but he did anyway. You should thank your own luck for surviving. He was still as difficult to deal with as ever. I smiled helplessly and asked him, how did you even find us? Shin Yimou glanced at me and snorted coldly. My attendant happened to pass by and saw you two trapped. He rushed back to report it. But Gu Xingyuan and I were disguised so well even Xuanxi couldn't recognize us. Unless his attendant had been tailing us from the moment we left, there was no way he could have spotted us by chance. Still, I didn't call him out. Instead, I forced an awkward smile. Is that so? Your attendant seems quite the helpful fellow. He choked on his words and dropped the subject. I pressed him, you killed Han Po's men to save us. How do you plan to cover this up? He looked at me, why are you slandering me? I received a report today. I killed Zhuang Han to rescue an innocent young woman being imprisoned and abused. What do you mean to save you? I was handling official business. How could Han Pa dare to offend our Shin family over such a trivial matter? So that excuse wasn't improvised, it was planned long ago. True to Shin Yimou's nature, he always leaves himself an escape route. Oh, right. Shin Yimou suddenly asked, did you find anything during your visit to the 10,000 Flowers Pavilion today? You didn't come back empty-handed, did you? Not exactly. I pulled the letter I'd snatched during the chaos from my bosom. Gu Xingyuan looked surprised for a moment, then smiled slightly, pulling a stack of letters from his own bosom. My husband, indeed. Shin Yimou eyed us, his words ground out through clenched teeth, you two make quite the synchronized pair. Before departing, Shin Yimou shared one final piece of intelligence. Han Pa, in a fit of ambition, had commissioned craftsmen to forge a batch of forbidden artifacts. Once completed, those artisans vanished without a trace. Where those artifacts now lie, however, remains unknown. Even the Dali Temple's most skilled spies have failed to uncover their whereabouts. If we could find them, it would give us a better chance of bringing Hanpa down. After saying this, Shinimo added, but you'll have to try finding them yourselves. I'm just throwing it out there, no plans to help you. Gu Xingyuan smiled with certainty. If those items truly exist, I will find them. Humph. Shinimo, unwilling to waste more words on us, hoisted his sword and left. After returning home, Gu Xingyuan and I meticulously organized the evidence. Our confidence, which had been at 5 or 6 points, now reached 7 or 8. If all went smoothly, we would uncover the forbidden items Hanpa had stashed away and then file a formal complaint with the imperial court. But unexpected events unfolded. On the 5th day of the new year, the very day Gu Xingyuan went to tail Hanpa, Shinimo suddenly showed up at my door. He grabbed my hand and pulled me along. Xue Xiying, come with me. What's going on? His unusual expression gave me a bad feeling, and my heart leapt into my throat. Shinimo took a moment to steady his breath before looking at me. His words came out one by one, like thunder from a clear blue sky. Today, the Ministry of Justice's spies intercepted a carrier pigeon escaping from Hanpo's residence. He sent word to Ningguda, ordering them to immediately execute my uncle and aunt. Hanpa has traced the matter to you. Therefore, he intended to eliminate our entire family to silence us. My body trembled uncontrollably. No, I can't leave. What about my parents? What about Gu Xingyuan? You needn't worry about Gu Xingyuan. He's skilled and holds immense prestige. Hanpa can't touch him for now. As for your uncle and aunt, I've already sent word for them to be watched over. It's you're the one in the greatest danger now. But what good is hiding? What about later? He wields overwhelming power, he'll find me eventually. And my father and mother won't escape either. My teeth chattered as I concentrated for a moment, then grabbed Shinimo's hand. Shinimo, I must see the Emperor. He froze, then quickly understood my intent. Are you mad? Do you realize you're gambling with your life? If your husband finds out, won't he have me flayed alive? Then do you have another solution? Who else in this world could stand against Hanpa and protect my parents? Could you? Shinimo fell silent. Shinimo, this time, I must take the gamble. That night, with Shinimo's help, I disguised myself as a Taoist nun and slipped into Dongjue Temple. In the side hall, Emperor Qing sat with eyes closed, resting. A single incense stick burned on the small table before him. Having devoted years to Taoist cultivation and alchemy, he came to Dongjue Temple to practice fasting during festivals. It was this opportunity one seized to approach him. Carrying a basin of water, I hadn't even drawn near when he suddenly opened his eyes. Your footsteps are unsteady. You are no cultivator. The guards nearby immediately drew their swords at his words. I knelt instantly. Your Majesty sees clearly. He gazed at me with a distant expression, his face impassive yet radiating an overwhelming presence. Speak. What is your purpose? I clenched my fists, nails digging into my flesh, forcing myself not to tremble. This humble subject wishes to present a petition to the Emperor. His brow twitched. Leaning back lazily, he gestured with interest for me to continue. Oh? What is it you wish to accuse? Speak. Emperor Qing prided himself as the wisest man under heaven. His greatest boast was that he rarely attended court, merely relaying instructions to trusted ministers sufficed to govern the realm with impeccable order. Yet his cleverness had become his undoing. The man he believed to be timid, diligent, and utterly loyal to him had, behind his back, altered his edicts, formed factions in secret, and persecuted loyal officials. Now the bureaucracy was dark and corrupt, infested with vermin. He was the greatest criminal under heaven. But I dare not speak thus. His arrogance knows no bounds. Should I suggest he erred, he would likely order my execution first. Steeling myself, I bowed and declared, since His Majesty ascended the throne, the people have lived in peace and prosperity, the nation's strength has grown formidable, and its might has reverberated across the four seas. His Majesty's achievements shall endure for ages to come. All stem from His Majesty's masterful strategy and discernment in appointing capable ministers. Yet now, certain individuals have betrayed His Majesty's trust, exploiting their positions to deceive the Emperor, oppress the people, and tarnish the reputation he has built over many years. I know Your Majesty cherishes the people and will surely punish the traitor. Yet the traitor has blocked Your Majesty's ears to truth, leaving me no avenue for complaint. With no other recourse, I disguised myself to enter Dongjue Temple and risk my life to make this appeal. Emperor Qing remained impassive as he inquired, "And who, exactly, is the person you wish to accuse?" "The person I accuse is none other than the current imperial uncle, Han Pa." "Do you have evidence?" "I do." I pulled the evidence and the transcribed case file from my bosom. Your Majesty need only glance at these to see Han Po's crimes laid bare. I lay prostrate on the floor, frozen in place for what felt like an eternity. Above me, silence hung heavy. Though it was the depths of winter, sweat began to bead on my forehead. After an unknown span of time, Emperor Qing finally tossed aside the case files and commanded me to raise my head. He narrowed his eyes, scrutinizing me intently, his gaze intensely oppressive. "No wonder you look so familiar. You are the daughter of Xue Xiao, the former Vice Minister of Rights, correct? Your name is Xue Xiying, is it not?" "Yes." I saw you when you were 6 years old." I lowered my head, my teeth chattering. Emperor Qing's intelligence was indeed legendary, his memory was truly terrifying. Perhaps this was why, despite devoting himself to alchemy and immortality practices, he still held such firm control over the empire. "Your Majesty, my father was framed. He took the blame to save my life. Though he and my mother are now exiled in Ningguda, Han Pa still orders their execution to silence them. I beg you to save them." I knelt on the floor, but Emperor Qing remained silent. After a long pause, he finally sneered softly, "Xue Xiying, you are quite skilled with words. But Minister Han is my trusted pillar of support. Why should I lightly believe the words of the daughter of a convicted criminal?" I jerked my head up, disbelief washing over me. "Your Majesty, Han Pa deceives above and below, with irrefutable evidence." "Enough. Guards, take her away." "Your Majesty." The Emperor refused to hear another word, ordering me dragged out. Plunged into darkness, I felt near despair. I never imagined the Emperor's favor toward Han Pa had reached such depths. I had no idea where I was imprisoned. That day at Dongjue Temple, I was first bound in a meditation chamber, then stuffed into a sack and knocked unconscious before being transported elsewhere. When I awoke, I found myself in this dungeon, cut off from the light of day. I was the only prisoner here. There were no windows, no sunlight, only an oil lamp on the opposite wall, its flame seemingly eternal. I could only guess how much time had passed by the intervals between meal deliveries. But even that was unreliable, for several times, I was brought food only when I was so starved I could barely stand. Day after day in this cell, my body grew increasingly thin and weak. My fear deepened too, fear that I'd botched this mission, fear that I'd failed to save my parents once more, and fear that by the time Gu Xinyuan saw me again, I'd be nothing but a corpse. The memory of him cradling me as I coughed up blood in my previous life tore at my heart like a knife. I wanted to live. I didn't want to cause him that kind of pain again. At least let me see him one more time. Curled up in the straw, I pinched myself relentlessly, refusing to let myself sleep. I feared that if I closed my eyes, I might never wake again. In a daze, I lost track of days until the dungeon door suddenly swung open. Blinding light flooded in, overwhelming my eyes until I could barely open them. After a long moment, I made out Emperor Qing's languid figure. Leaning against the doorway, he remarked indifferently, Shui Xiying, you're fortunate, you have a good husband and a good friend. What did he mean? Weak and barely able to stand upright, 2 guards seized my arms and dragged me out. Only then did I realize the dungeon where I'd been imprisoned lay directly beneath Emperor Qing's Hall of Cultivating the Heart. Inside the Hall of Cultivating the Heart, a woman in sumptuous robes wept bitterly, her tears like pear blossoms. Your Majesty, spare my brother. He is innocent. He's as timid as a mouse, how could he harbor treasonous thoughts? Your Majesty. The Emperor remained unmoved. He gave a subtle signal to a guard nearby, and the woman's neck was snapped. Then, Emperor Qing slowly turned and looked down at me on the floor. Only then did I learn that after my capture at Dongjue Temple, Gu Xingyuan and Shen Yimou risked their lives to infiltrate the Han residence and discovered the forbidden items Han Pa had secretly hoarded. During my imprisonment, the 2 of them joined forces to expose Han Pa, then lobbied other officials to join in the denunciation. The twists and turns of it all are too complex to explain in a few words. In short, Emperor Qing had now dealt with Han Pa. What about my parents? I asked. Emperor Qing replied slowly, when I had you arrested, I also sent word for them to be taken away. They are now on their way back to the capital. So Emperor Qing had listened that day after all. He hadn't trusted Han Pa as much as I'd thought. A weight lifted from me. Kneeling on the ground, I exhaled a long, deep breath. Then, Emperor Qing's voice turned cold, your courage in risking your life to petition the court is commendable. However, disguising yourself to infiltrate a temple constitutes the crime of deceiving the sovereign. Only death can serve as a warning to future generations. I stared at him blankly for a long moment before nodding in resignation. From the moment I resolved to see him, I had anticipated my death. He drew a vial of poison from his sleeve and tossed it into my lap. Out of pity for your desperate desire to save your father, I shall grant you a whole corpse. Take your own life. My hands trembled as I clutched the vial, suddenly overcome by fear. Do you have any final words? He asked. Though resolved to die, sorrow still welled up uncontrollably. I beg your Majesty to treat my parents kindly. The Qing Emperor coldly refused, I cannot. Though your father was falsely accused, he confessed to his crime, that too is deceit. Allowing him to return to the capital is already an act of mercy. Tears fell in clumps for a moment before I managed a bitter smile. Then I beg your Majesty, do not let my husband see my body. Tell him I committed treason and am imprisoned in the dungeon forever. Is that acceptable? I truly did not want Gu Xingyuan to see my corpse again. How could he bear it? In my past life, I treated him so badly. After I died, he grieved himself half to death. This time around, we were deeply in love, harmonious as Qin and Se. We'd only enjoyed a few days of happiness together, how could he possibly bear this? The more I thought about it, the more heartbroken I became, weeping uncontrollably. The Qing Emperor, perhaps finding it tiresome, urged, hurry up. I have no time to wait for you. I closed my eyes, uncorked the vial, and tilted my head back to drink it down. When I awoke, I was in the carriage home, lying in Gu Xingyuan's arms. Across from us sat Shen Yimou. He had grown noticeably thinner. Seeing my eyes open, he couldn't resist sneering, awake? Did you enjoy your trip to the palace, Shen Ying? I struggled to speak, what Shen Ying? I lifted my head to look at Gu Xingyuan. His face was utterly haggard, his eyes bloodshot. Looking at me, he was both heartbroken and helpless. Shui Xiying was executed for the crime of deceiving the emperor. Now, you are the youngest daughter of the Shen family, Shen Yimou's sister, Shen Ying. I didn't die? And they've assigned me to the Shen family? Gu Xingyuan held me tightly, his chin gently resting against my forehead. Xiying, from now on, don't do anything this dangerous again. Don't make me worry like this anymore, okay? These past days while I was captured, he must have been so afraid, right? My heart ached unbearably, and I nodded hastily. Yes. We'll never be apart again. Just then, Shinimo suddenly interjected, his tone sharp. Didn't I say Shui Xiying is dead? The one in your arms is Shining Ying. Gu Xingyuan lifted his head, met his gaze, and nodded. Understood, elder brother. Shinimo froze, his face turning pale with fury. Are you sick? By the way, how did you find the forbidden item Hanpa was hiding? It was right under our noses. HM? Let your dear husband tell you. Brother and I had been lurking in the Han residence for days without finding it. Finally, we accidentally knocked over Han Po's court robes and suddenly discovered the outer layer was embroidered with cranes and clouds, but underneath, it was dragon patterns. Ah. So Han Po's been fantasizing about becoming emperor all along. You two are amazing, how did you even notice that? Gu Xingyuan's gaze grew somber. I'm not amazing. If my elder brother hadn't nudged me, I wouldn't have noticed either. I glanced sideways at Shinimo's face, dark as charcoal. Gu Xingyuan, you did that on purpose, didn't you? What a pristine white lotus, untouched by the mud. 7 days after my return home, my parents were also summoned back to the capital. Having endured 2 years of hardship in Ninguda, their hair and beards had turned completely white, making them appear decades older. Our family was finally reunited. We embraced each other and wept for a long time. Gu Xingyuan stood guard beside us. Seeing how hard I was crying, he handed me a handkerchief. Gu Xingyuan, you come too. Come, let's cry together. I pulled him close, joining him in the embrace with my parents. Gu Xingyuan lowered his head, a faint smile touching his lips. Half a month later, Gu Xingyuan returned to Yanmen to resume his duties. I saw him off beyond the city gates, watching him and Ping'an ride away together. My heart ached with reluctance, yet it was sweet. Gu Xingyuan, this time, there are people at home who miss you. To love someone, to care for someone, truly, it is the most beautiful thing in the world. Not long after Gu Xingyuan's return, Shinimo also came to my door to bid farewell. He said he'd been in the capital too long, having forgotten what the outside world looked like, so he'd requested a transfer to travel for a few years. His departure was sudden, and I hadn't prepared any farewell gift, leaving me flustered. No need to give me anything. I wouldn't appreciate it. I could only let it go. I watched him for a long time before smiling. Shinimo, thank you for helping me all those days. Someone as afraid of being dragged down as you were willing to throw caution to the wind, I truly don't know how to thank you. I wasn't afraid of being dragged down. He looked at me and took a deep breath. Shui Xiying, you might not believe this, but back then, I had decided to marry you. Even if it meant risking my future, even if it meant being expelled from the Shin family, I would have married you. But I hesitated too long. By the time I resolved to find you, Gu Xingyuan had already come to ask for your hand. After he finished, his expression suddenly relaxed. It was as if a heavy weight had finally been lifted from his heart. I was stunned for a long moment before finding my voice. Really? I always thought. You despised me. How could I despise you? I know how good you were to me back then. I'm not truly heartless. He turned his face away, his tone cold. Shui Xiying, I've done everything I could. I've repaid every favor you ever did for me. From now on, I owe you nothing. I remained silent for a long moment, thinking only that he was a decent person, just terribly awkward. I understand. Still, thank you. Don't thank me. It's unnecessary. I sighed. Then I wish you smooth sailing on your journey. May your official career flourish, soaring to the clouds, living up to the high hopes of the entire Shin clan. That is only natural. I shall become a virtuous minister, my name immortalized in history. Of course you will. The climate in Jiangnan differs from the capital. Take care of yourself. I hear there are many beauties there. Perhaps you'll meet the woman destined for you. That's none of your concern. I'm leaving. He gave a haughty smile, swung himself onto his horse, and galloped away. A cloud of dust billowed along the long street. When the dust settled, only scattered hoofprints remained, fading beneath the footsteps of passers-by. My life returned to tranquility. Each day was spent either attending to my parents or sewing garments and shoes for Gu Xingyuan. Everyone else had clothes made by their wives, he deserved the same. Back in my maiden home, my needlework was famously exquisite, even the embroiderers in the imperial city couldn't match my craft. Gu Xingyuan wrote every few days, recounting events at Yanmen Pass, occasionally slipping in sprigs of its wildflowers for me to admire. My infrequent and slow replies earned me many complaints from him. 2 years later, his term at Yanmen ended, and he was recalled to the capital. That first month after his return, I felt unsteady on my feet every day. Years later, even after being back in the capital for several years and spending every moment together, he still occasionally brought up old grievances, how I hadn't missed him enough, how I'd written too few letters, and would torment me relentlessly at night. One night, he suddenly woke, breathing heavily, his face streaked with tears. He held me, his whole body trembling, "Seeing, you're still here. Thank God. I thought I'd never see you again. What happened?" He cupped my face, his eyes filled with anguish. "I had a dream. In it, you despised me, wouldn't even look at me. No matter what I did, you wouldn't let me near you. Later, I went to Yanmen and wrote you letter after letter, hoping you'd care about me just once. But you were so heartless, you never replied." I stared at him blankly. "Then what happened?" "Then you silently took poison and killed yourself, refusing even a final farewell. Seeing, don't do this to me. Don't leave me." He held me tightly, his hands trembling uncontrollably. The dream he described was precisely our past life. By some strange coincidence, these memories had resurfaced in his dreams. I lifted my hand to cup his face, each word deliberate. "Husband, look at me, I'm alive and well. Aren't we both fine? Don't worry. I'll live 100 years. I'll never, ever leave you. Even if you chase me away, I won't go." He gazed at me, his expression gradually calming. Leaning his head against my shoulder, he smiled with a sigh of relief. "I'd never chase you away. I know. The events of our past life would never repeat." Gu Xingyuan served in the capital, rising swiftly through the ranks. Within 2 years, the emperor bestowed a grand mansion upon him. On the day we moved in, he held me close and whispered, "Xiaiying, I promise to give you a good life. I won't break that promise. Our days will only grow better." I shook my head. In my heart, every day we spend together as a family is a good day. Outside the hall, swallows chirped incessantly, as if announcing that every day to come would be a good day. The story ends here. Thank you all for your companionship. See you in the next chapter.